Hello everybody, my name is Piero Giorgio. I am the author of the best-selling book Survive the Economic Collapse. Today I am here in Senegal. I am in Dakar on the Corniche. Behind me you can see the Gorée Islands, the infamous islands where a lot of slaves have been shipped across the Atlantic. It's not the only place there's been slavery everywhere, but certainly this is one of the hot spots in this part of the world. I have a message for all of you of African descent, but especially my friends of Senegalese descent that live in France, in UK, in Little Senegal, in New York, and other places. I don't know if you've read my book, but certainly you know that difficult times ahead are going to bring inevitable, in my opinion, collapse of the world economy. And the question remains, how will this impact Africa? Now, I've done a video a few years back when I was in Kenya, 2 years back, about Africa in general. And I wanted to mention to you a little things about Senegal and how maybe you have a chance to make a difference here, not only for Senegal and Africa, but also for you and your family. Here's the idea. And by the way, I want to thank you, all my friends in Senegal, who in the Pan-Africanist movement, who offered me this very nice shirt, which I wear proudly here in Africa as a sign of solidarity and friendship between white people, black people, Europeans, and Africans. And check out kemiseba.com. That's the guy who invited me. He's a great guy, and if you don't know him, he really says smart things about what African people can do for Africa, and I think he's completely right. Senegal. Now, Senegal is a small country, 8 million people. High growth, relatively high growth. It's not a huge economy, but it's definitely a very key and important country in the west part of Africa. It has still very good economic and political links with France, but more and more with the United States and other nations. They certainly have this evolution of the political system and the economy to be much more globalized. So it is a country that is very modern, very up to speed, and definitely has potential in terms of infrastructure for people who come here to develop projects. I've met a few people who have projects and who help small and medium enterprises to find markets, to develop themselves, and I'll put the links here on below the video. Now, what are the assets of Senegal as for Africa? Well, first of all, it's a land of opportunities. There is a lot of opportunities for small businesses to start in many sectors, in distribution, in trade, but also in working the land, the soil. Now, if you read my book, you know that one of my solutions to withstand the difficult collapse that is going to come is to have autonomy. Autonomy, of course, starting with food, water and food and health and energy and so on. So this can definitely be done here. There's a lot of people who leave France, who leave the United States to move back here, not to have fun or play in the fashion industry that is strong here in Dakar. This is the Fashion Week Africa here. But certainly that can develop agriculture and land-based projects to grow local food, organic, and to distribute it first with the community around them, so with the local villages, with the local people, and set up system of exchange when suddenly they may not create a lot of money, but they do create a lot of wealth, which is much more important. And that wealth, based in the land, can help the local people, the local villages, to build a very strong local economy. And yes, it can start small, but as long as you are well fed and in good health because your food is excellent, it's much better than living in a slum in Paris, London, or Washington, D.C., right? You understand that? So, with a little work and a little technology, motor tools and of course modern equipment, using traditional techniques, you can grow amazing amounts of vegetables. You can have organic food, organic ways of managing animal and bring up very good quality meat. And of course you can export it, because as you grow to a certain size, of course there is a market, and I'm not even talking international market, but certainly in Senegal for health food, which is growing. Middle class in Africa is growing very fast. It's unlike Europe or United States where the middle class is being crushed and destroyed. Here, it is still growing. So there are opportunities to also do business with that middle class, who certainly wants more political freedom, political rights, but also wants great products and great food. So there's a lot of opportunities in that. In terms of bureaucracy, the good news in Africa generally overall is that the hurdles of bureaucracy, which include corruption, have diminished very, very much. There are still some, and there's still a lot of corruption in the very high levels of business and the very high levels of governments across, I am afraid, all over the place. Hey, but it's not unlike the most corrupt countries in the world, which are the United States and England and France and the West. I mean, we Europeans or Americans have no lessons anymore of to give to Africa in any way whatsoever. We are becoming just as corrupt as anyone else, which is really bad. And it is a cause of the coming collapse, by the way. Anyway, the hurdles are low now. You can come to Africa, set up a business very fast. Clearly, you need to have skills, you need to have an idea, and you need to have hard work. And you need to have some capital to start. But as you know, it's fairly easy if you're smart and if you understand not to spend money in useless stuff like TV, like sports, like fashion clothes in Europe or United States. You can save very fast a large amount of money to start something quite interesting in here, where comparative costs are very low for the moment. So that is clearly an opportunity. And of course, there are many fields which are growing here in the continent, but also in Senegal. They have found a little bit of oil. It's not huge, but it's interesting for a country like that. So it could give them a sort of autonomy for energy for a while. There is a lot of other raw materials that can be exploited, but certainly these are usually seen by very large players. I think there's much more opportunities in small and medium businesses. However, in terms of the culture shock of coming here, the good thing about Senegal and generally West Africa is that people are very open, they're very friendly, and that's really in the DNA of this part of the world. And by the way, they're also quite strong physically, which I always like, because I like to talk with people who are like me, who are big guys. And certainly that's important, because agriculture, it's hard work, and I know it. I have a farm and I work in my farm to make my vegetables, and certainly having people that can work the land and that you can motivate by giving them a partnership in a way, or shares of what you do. And with modern management techniques, you can really get some different levels. But certainly, in the end, you also want to think about how Africa and Senegal can develop with development goals that are not to copy the United States or Europe, but are goals and means that fit the local culture, the local metaphysic, the local beliefs. I think for too many years after decolonization, Africa has tried to copy the West, and the West now is going to collapse, and the ripple effects are going to impact everywhere, including here, big time. However, if the development is made to fit the aspiration and the beliefs and the ways of being that are traditional in Africa, you have a good chance to succeed, to be prosperous and happy. What else do we want in life? We want to be happy, and we want to be prosperous for ourselves, and especially for our children and our families and our friends. We don't want to be one guy who's rich and everybody else is poor. We want to have everyone around us benefit from our work and our prosperity. This is what we need to rebuild in the coming new world that is going to happen after the collapse of the current global economy. Again, it's my opinion, but I think it's worth a try, and I'm definitely trying this in my land, in Switzerland, and I wish to you all to try and to succeed, to do such projects. Wherever you are, doesn't matter. If you stay in Europe, if you're Africans and live in Europe, I wish you the best. But certainly remember that the opportunities are here for your health, your survival, and of course, as you succeed, for your wealth and prosperity, and again, happiness. We want to be happy with ourselves and with our families and with our friends. And certainly here, there is still these ideas of tribe, these ideas of connection bonds between people of the same village, of the same ethnicity, of the same places. And sometimes, yes, they are a burden, because when I know so many Senegalese people who work in France, and whenever they come back to Senegal, they have to show off, they have to bring gifts, they have to bring money for everyone, and it's a stress factor for them. Sure, there are these aspects which you can try to tame and which you can try to limit. However, that's your way of life. And sharing with others is also what makes us happy, right? So, for all my friends, again, in the United States, in France, and across the world who think of Africa as a potential, I can only say to you that this is an interesting thought, and that you have to think about how you can develop in a real way to make a real impact for you first, and then, of course, for the continent, which is your land and which is your continent. It's not, Africa is not the land of the white people. It was a big mistake to go, and we should never have gone in the way we went. And it was not a land for the Arabs, who also went and enslaved just as others. And, you know, my grandfathers didn't do anything, but still, these relationships have been spoiled, have been made untrue because of all these historical facts, which we have to understand and we have to get over. So, time to develop Africa in the right way, time to develop Senegal in the right way, and I really hope I will have the time in the coming years, which are going to be tougher and tougher and more difficult and more unstable. I still wish that I will have time to come here, and if you want to ask me questions, if you want to read my book, it's Survive the Economic Collapse, you can find on the link below, and certainly I'd be very happy, and I do communicate on my Facebook or on my YouTube videos a lot with people of African descent about what we could do in Africa, and certainly don't forget to check kemiseba.com and others who are developing Africa. And with that, I bid you farewell. Take care.